Hello?
Hello.
How are ya?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good, I'm good. Wait a minute. They need to turn up the volume a little bit because I can't really hear him.
Okay. I'll speak in a normal voice. This is how I will be speaking.
Okay.
Uh-oh. She seems frozen.
And this wig is giving the Dolly Parton collection. Did I nail where you got it from?
Yep, that's where I got it from. She's always been a huge inspiration for me, and people say she's just a pair of tits.
Well, I think that she would say that plus she's more. But we always love a good Dolly Parton inspired wig.
Do you think I think she's a lesbian. She's got to be, right?
I mean, I don't. That's not what she says, and I think the fact that she's been married to what's Carl, I guess his name is.
Yeah, the
forever.
Mysterious Carl. That's like Oprah's husband.
Yeah. I don't think Oprah has a husband, does she?
Remember, she had that guy with the mustache.
Stedman.
Oh no, he's not her husband. He's her longtime partner, I think.
Boyfriend. Whatever.
Yeah. Are we recording on this end?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, cool. And all right, cool. Amazing. I mean, the wig is also giving Targaryen, I have to say. We should just make that, because I watched House of Dragon last night, so it's also Rhaenyra Targaryen is.
I've been called a Targaryen
also the
Rastafarian
inspiration
because
here.
I'm so into reggae, and that show.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Huh. What do you think would be their Bob Marley song? Maybe. I think Rhaenyra's would be "I Shot the Sheriff." I'm pretty sure.
Can we turn her up? I can't hear her very well. And the resolution is terrible.
Is it? I can see you really clearly.
Huh. It'll probably clear up. Maybe the bandwidth has to catch up. How are you feeling? How you
Okay.
doing?
I'm pretty good. You know, it was trash day in New York, and I was just talking to our engineer over here that I don't understand why New York, unlike other major cities in the world, doesn't collect trash at night. It would make everyone's life so much easier, including the traffic situation.
Yeah. Well, here in the South Bronx, they don't pick it up at all. So it impacts. It becomes like impacted feces, and there's layers and layers of it, like Mesozoic rock. You could like cut into it and carbon date how old that street is. It's amazing. They just given up.
So you're in the South Bronx. That's where your studio is?
Yes.
Or where you record?
That's where we record, where our studio is. Yes.
Yeah, cool. We're in Brooklyn, so you know the struggle of the various, situations with garbage and all the rest of it in New York City.
Yeah.
How are we doing? How are we doing on your side? Because I think that we're ready to go on this side. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're ready to go on this side. If you're ready to go.
I'm ready.
All right, cool. Well, Gavin, thank you so much for talking to us in a fabulous Dolly Parton Targaryen wig. Again, I mean, both of those I'm into.
Don't assume it's a wig. I haven't seen you in forever, so this might be my real hair.
Oh, I don't think I've seen you ever. Have we ever seen each other in person?
No,
I don't think so.
You may have seen an old picture before I started growing it out.
I saw a picture of you from a month ago. So in a month's time, maybe you went to Turkey, had a hair hormone. Well, I don't think it would have worked in a month, but anything's possible.
Yes.
With medical science. So thanks for taking the time to talk today. I wanted to have a chat with you specifically for our podcast, which, about kind of about Western chauvinism and the way in which it is, concerned about gender and gender, what they would call it gender ideology, but what other people would call gender identity. And we were bantering around like, oh, who should we talk to? And I was like, well, why don't we try to talk to Gavin McGinnis about it? Because they're the ones who kind of launched the latest phase of this movement and know more about how this intersects with the idea than anybody else. So that's what we want to talk about today.
Okay. I don't speak a lot of this language, like misinterpretism. I've never heard that word
What's
before.
That? I don't know what that is.
Oh, I thought that you said that.
No, I didn't.
Okay. So, yeah, shoot away. I'm ready to rock. Any questions you have, I'm happy to explain.
Okay, cool. So I think that for me, what for you is like when you proclaimed like the need for people to stand up for Western values, like what for you at the time was really under attack? And do you still see those same things under attack now? Like what led you to say this is something we have to like we got to stand up now?
Well, the backbone of the West is Christianity and patriarchy, masculinity. Now, what defines the West is it's a very unique culture, and America within the West is especially unique. America is one of the only places in the world that says, come down here. You don't have to be Christian, but you have to respect Christianity. Come down here, work your ass off. I don't care how thick your accent is. Boom, you're American. You're one of us. And America, as the sort of hyperbolic example of the West, is its grit, its mobility, its a total lack of classism, a total hatred for identity politics. You know, in Britain, you have that, hello, how are you, my darling? And then that's juxtaposed with like, oh, don't know, what are you doing? You got to muck about. But in America, we have a peanut farmer for president. You know, we have some yokel from the sticks in Oklahoma. He can be president. We have a black guy who can be president. We don't do identity politics. So it's ironic when people say Western chauvinism is white supremacy, because one of the biggest traits of the West is eschewing identity politics and saying whoever you are, you're in. But there's a definite attack on the West in schools, pushing this narrative that America was stolen from the Indians and it was built by slaves, and it should be a nation of shame, a culture of shame. We need more people to come in and reinvent what the West is. No, we don't need that. We need dads. We need American families. And we need at least a respect for this country's history.
So I want to come back to the patriarchy piece, because you made that as foundational, which I think is really, really interesting. I hadn't heard it put so forthrightly. But when it comes to the conversations around race, if Western chauvinism doesn't have race also as a core issue, which you say that it doesn't from your reading of it, then why do you think there's been such disproportionate outcomes in Western society between people of color and white people? Do you think that that's not a function of the ideology and the way that it's been established from the beginning?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, and it comes down to nature or nurture. The nature people say, well, people just have genetic differences. You know, there's not a lot of short, fat white guys in the NBA. No one says the NBA is racist. I'm more of a nurture guy when it comes to this, and I look at, black crime stats before welfare, before the New Deal, and they're about the same as white crime stats. That's because the father was away. I think the reason blacks are doing badly is because the government said, hey, black ladies, we'll give you money if you don't get married. They incentivized shattering the black family, and without fathers, the black family fell apart. And now we have a situation of fatherless, lost children that don't understand that there's ramifications for bad behavior. And when you don't have a dad, you don't do well in school, you don't feel inclined to work hard, and it snowballs.
So for you, it sounds like that, as you say, patriarchy really is the issue, or not an issue, but it's a really important building block for the type of society that you think is the most effective and that leads to the best outcomes. So to that degree, where does the issue, of gender identity fit into the idea of patriarchy? There are, for instance, trans people that fit into the gender binary, right? There are people who, go from one to the other. And so still, in a way, could be reinforcing the system that you're talking about, not intentionally, but within the structure that's been laid out. So I'm just wondering, what do you think, gender identity or gender ideology, that's a phrase that certain people use, fits into your idea of patriarchy?
Well, there's two genders. There's men and women. There's people who play dress up and stuff, like Gigi Gorgeous and Nat Getty. They're in a heterosexual relationship, only she's the husband and he's the wife. But if they were to have a kid, it would be more like a tomboy and I don't know, a glam rocker had a kid, someone from a band like Cinderella or something. But yeah, I guess there's a scenario where there's a gay dad and a lesbian mom, but these scenarios are the outliers. And to pretend that this is a pattern and gays want to be normal is just not true. I fell for it when we first heard about gay marriage. I was like, that sounds great. I'm in. You're trying to be normal. You want to have a mommy and a daddy, but it's two daddies or two mommies. Sounds good. And then it was BS. There was orgies in the hot tub. There was tormenting, Christian bakers. There was a divorce rate that makes the heterosexual divorce rate look like a joke. And I realized, you didn't really want to be married. You just wanted the rights or to appear that you want to be married. So, I mean, I guess there are exceptions where there's some sort of trans dad who looks like a dude but has a vagina and he acts like a cool guy, but that's just not the pattern.
But even if it's not the pattern, don't you think that people in America should be able to have the freedom to be who they are without discrimination and persecution? So even if you personally think, this is not something that should be supported, I mean, it's not a threat to society, is it? And so if
absolutely,
it's not a threat
but tune in to 10 years ago, from let's go 1970 to 2010. This wasn't an issue. I mean, gays, when I was a kid, there was Paul Lynde on TV and what's his name, with the confetti bucket, and there was the YMCA, and there was Judas Priest singing, and there was Liberace, and it was just sort of like, we don't want to get into the details of your sex life because it sounds weird, but no one cared. And then it happened, then they came for the kids, and Drag Queen Story Hour was a major turning point in the mainstream's view of gays and trans and drag and all that stuff. I went to a drag bar with Milo the other day. No one cares. Lips, I think it was called. But the kid thing is a major turning point because, for one, you're doing irreversible damage with this top surgery, and the hormones are making you permanently infertile. And two, trans has a brutal suicide rate. So why are we encouraging someone to get into something that has a brutal suicide rate?
I mean, it seems like there's a lot of conflation there, and I think I'd love to pull those three things apart. So the first is people who, again, I just restate the question, the people who are trans, who live out their lives and want to live out their lives without persecution or discrimination, which, is kind of hard when there are nearly 600 bills that are pending against you, but that's okay.
No, they're not against you. They're not against you. No one had a problem with trans until you said, I want to go to the bathroom in the changing room, or I want to read to kids. It's like the Proud Boys always say, 18 and up, we don't show up.
So Proud Boys being outside of the LGBTQ centers or nightclubs, that's not them showing up at places where there are people over 18?
That's a total and utter myth. There has never, ever been Proud Boys protesting gay. I know tons of gay Proud Boys. I've been to a gay Proud Boy wedding. There's at least one in every chapter. Proud Boys don't have a problem with gays. They're dudes, so they're in. And there's never been Proud Boys protesting gay nightclubs. No way. Never. Maybe Muslims, but never Proud Boys.
So if you are, so let me just go back to the kids thing, because I think that's really relevant. So, have you ever been to a Drag Queen Story Hour?
Yeah, I think I have, actually. When the very, very beginning, they started out.
Where was it, and what struck you?
I think it was at the Children's Museum in New York. It wasn't, or maybe it was Al Sharpton. It was something that offended me.
Those are two very different things. Well, it's either the Brooklyn Museum or Al Sharpton. I think that's a massive range there.
They both stank of some sort of agenda. But I don't think. Yeah, maybe I haven't been to them. But you have a wildly. You have a wildly disproportionate number of pedophiles within the drag and the trans community. So risk it?
What's the data point for that? I think that's been disproved. What's your data point that there are, quote, large numbers of pedophiles in the... No. You said large numbers of pedophiles. And I think that if we're talking about the number of pedophiles, right, in terms of society, I mean, there have been a great number of sitting members of Congress, for example.
I'm talking about a disproportionate number. Let's try to.
Why? In what way? You're showing pictures of individuals. I don't know how showing pictures of individuals shows what you say to be a disproportionate. In what way is showing? Even if you were to show 50 pictures up here, I don't know how that would be disproportionate.
I got 31 examples.
Okay, 31 individuals. Can you explain to me how 31 individuals is indicative of
a pattern?
Of a disproportionate number?
Well, you think of how many drag queen story hours there are. It's a pretty esoteric thing. It's about as much as there are maybe stand-up cellists. You know, the... What if I showed you 30 pedophiles playing the cello?
I think that there are probably tens of thousands of people across the United States that play the cello, I think.
Yeah, but as far as concerts that go on, you hear about
tens of thousands.
There's usually
there'd be tens of thousands, and you show pictures of 30, and you say, quote, disproportionate close.
No, there's not tens of thousands of drag queen story hours.
No, there are tens of thousands of cellists, and so you made the analogy. I'm just asking
my analogy would be going to see a stand-up cellist play a show. How often do you hear about that? It's pretty rare. And I'm not, look, I want to be clear here.
I don't think so, but that's
Brian,
fine.
make those behind me, not in front of me. That's like, you're bogarting the whole screen.
And I mean, and also these are people that you say are, I mean, I don't know that there's any way to verify even the numbers that you're throwing up on the screen.
Oh, well, these are all people who have been arrested for child porn or grooming. Alberto Garza, Chantal Mandalay, Brett Blom.
So from this standpoint, right, the fact that there are 31 people that you can cite who you say...
tip of the iceberg. I could go on and on.
Hold on, I'm sure, possibly. But you're saying that there are 31 people who you say are, whatever the phrase is, they're either pedophiles or groomers. And so for you... those 31 people necessitate a reaction against an entire group of people in the United States.
Whoa. 18 up, we don't show up. Drag Queen Story Hour specifically. I don't have a problem with trans. I don't have a problem with cross-dressers. I don't have a problem with gays. Nobody does. Nobody did. The only thing is Drag Queen Story Hour around kids. I don't want sexuality around kids. There's no such thing as a gay kid. Gay is a type of sexuality. Think of it as an egg. An egg is not a chicken. An egg is probably going to become a chicken, but it's not a chicken yet. So there's little boys who like show tunes, and they're into fashion. That is a kid who's most likely going to become gay when he has a sexuality post-pubescent. I don't want little kids taught about sexuality. And why did you choose drag queens? Like, even my wife's a fag hag. I've been around gays my whole life. Drag queens have always been like the more esoteric of the gay community, and they have all these sexual names like that relate to genitalia and Miss Ovary, and there's all kinds of sexual puns with their names. And you chose them. They look like strippers. I don't want strippers reading to kids. That's a sexual thing.
I mean, the names that stand out for me are like Little Miss Hot Mess or
Gloria
like
Hole.
But anyway,
Chloe Midia, Missy Ornery Style, Gina Collegist. You know the names are almost always sexual.
So one of the questions that I have is why do you believe that the Proud Boys are necessary outside of these events? That if there is, as you say, don't we live in a society where there are authorities whose role it is to deal with these things? Like, why does a group like the Proud Boys have any reason to show up anywhere where there are kids?
Because the authorities have failed us. Have you seen Desmond is Amazing in New York City at 2 a.m, dressed like he's the singer of No Doubt and having money put in his clothing? He did Desmond is Amazing did a
2 a.m.
Desmond is Amazing did a podcast with Michael Ehrlich, who is a gay murderer who decapitated his drug dealer. And there's Desmond sitting next to him with the word Rohypnol behind him. We just had Jeremy Hobbs in, I think it was Georgia, and he wanted to do a drag queen story hour. The police showed up to stop the Proud Boys, and they had the National Guard there to stop the Proud Boys. Proud Boys never do anything illegal. They just show up and say, this isn't happening if there's kids here. And it turns out Jeremy Hobbs was arrested soon after that with all kinds of date rape drugs, meth, guns. We had Panda Dulce. We went to protest that in San Francisco. And they're like, what? It's just a guy reading to kids. What's the problem here? And then we find out he put out videos where he's saying all the kids out there can suck my dick. And he's talking about Satanism and stuff, which, you know, I'm into heavy metal. I get into the Satan thing is cool, but not for kids. Not for kids.
Are Proud Boys always peaceful?
Yes. Tell me about a time with Drag Queen Story Hour where they've even broken the law. Now, Proud Boys have fought Antifa.
And I said peaceful. They're always peaceful?
They never start fights. They have a motto. We don't start fights, we finish them.
Are the Proud Boys always peaceful?
Well, I don't know what that question means. I'm not peaceful if you punch me in the face.
You don't know what the definition of peaceful is?
The Proud Boys are always peaceful unless you start something with them. They've never beaten up a drag queen. What's the definition of starting something with them? What's the definition of starting something with them? Well, my friends Max and John are Proud Boys who went to jail for 4 years, prison, because Antifa whipped a bottle of piss at them, said, do you want to go? And then started kicking them. So the Proud Boys retaliated and beat the crap out of them.
But I thought that in the United States, you are supposed to exercise restraint. That's why people who normally, right? I don't understand.
Well, the laws of the United States of
what
mutual.
You're doing is like you're legitimizing an escalation of force. Right?
No, Antifa jumped them. If someone jumps you, you got to defend yourself.
So I've spoken to drag queens who have been trapped inside of buildings. That have been surrounded by Proud Boys during Drag Queen Story Hour, in which they were reading to kids. And the reason why they read to kids is because kids see them as cartoon characters, and it's fun, and it actually encourages kids to read. Right?
Okay, well, let's do cartoon characters. They're sexual. They're dressed sexually.
Let me finish. You can feel free to respond in whatever way. But they have been in buildings that have been surrounded by Proud Boys, and they have told me that the Proud Boys made the kids frightened from the things that they were shouting and how they were yelling at kids and their families as they were entering buildings. And one person who does drag to me said, quote, I thought I was going to die that day, close quote. And so I don't understand if you are saying that things are as peaceful as they are, that anyone would ever have a sense they were going to die and kids would lead and traumatize as well as their families. Well, doesn't sound like is that a standard protest?
It sounds like your side has brainwashed these children into thinking they're in danger. So if you brought your kids to a stripper story hour and the stripper was sitting there reading to kids and people were yelling, not on my watch, this isn't happening, I'm sure the kids would be scared because the mothers would say, you're doing nothing wrong. You just came here to see one of these beautiful strippers read. And now you don't feel safe. Yeah, they don't feel safe because these mothers have brought them to a sexual thing and people are protesting it. Like, they started it. You understand? Like, if you have a sexual thing around kids, people are going to get mad. And then you go, well, I feel unsafe. Well, then don't be sexual around kids. You'll feel perfectly safe.
If the Proud Boys are, as you say, they don't start anything, and, Proud Boys are peaceful. I mean, we've seen there've been, over 100 documented protests at LGBTQ centers and drag queen story hours and all the rest of it.
Only drag queen story hours. Stop conflating that and pretending that Proud Boys are homosexuals. There are plenty of homosexuals in the club. How do you finesse that? Does that confuse you?
So if that's the case, that that Proud Boys have been focusing on these in the wake of January 6th, how do you explain that? Why did the Proud Boys go from focusing on the United States Capitol and all of the events of that day, which you can see for yourself, to somehow pivoting towards these let's use your language, these acts of demonstration. Why would you? What is the connection there? That's confusing to me.
There's no pivots there. The Proud Boys have been rallying on a regular basis since I left in '08 when Enrique Tarrio took over, and he was obsessed with rallying, so they did it at least on a monthly basis. There was no pivot there. In fact, January 6th was the least Proud Boy rally that has happened in a long time. They have a rule where you have to ask the local chapter, I want to rally here, is that okay? And there's no DC chapter, but there's a Virginia chapter. And they said, no, it's not okay. You cannot wear Proud Boys colors there. You have to go as a civilian. So they went as civilians, and they were political activists. They're patriots, and they went there just like hundreds of other people went there. There was no pivot there.
So the Proud Boys that have been convicted in the wake of January 6th were just freelancing.
Correct.
So then, so you said that like this is something that Proud Boys have been concerned about since the beginning. Like, do you think that? I mean, it doesn't. What? How far can Proud Boys go to disrupt, you think, Drag Queen Story Hour? Like, what's the line? Where's the line for you? If as you say, from your perspective, that there's an entire group of people in the country that are, from your perspective, attacking and undermining children, how far can the Proud Boys? You're not associated with them anymore, but from the outside, what is your estimation of how far they could go?
Well, the law, whatever the law dictates, they stay within the parameters of the law. In fact, these guys will call local law enforcement and find out if there's any particular laws in this area, like you can't stand on the road, you have to be on the sidewalk, or the bullhorn can't be louder than this volume. They're very strict about the laws, and all they do is show up. Like, you don't have to beat up anyone. You just have to say, ha, I caught you. And there's only been like, Drag Queen Story Hour is pretty new. There's only been like, I don't know, a couple hundred instances. And I have this massive list of people associated with it who have been caught with child porn and grooming. So here's an analogy that I use, okay? Mm-hmm. When you look at terrorism in the skies recently, we've got 9/11, we have Richard Reed, the shoe bomber, San Bernardino. We have this wildly disproportionate number of Muslims. So when I go to the airport and I see that like half the people that are checking me for bombs are Muslim, I go, can we, like, I know you're innocent, you individual Muslim checking me right now, but the way the pattern's going, can we maybe not do that? Like, say Nazi skinheads were behind all the air terror attacks, a disproportionate number of land terror attacks, and I go to the airport and there's a skinhead there checking me. Now, he's not a Nazi skinhead, he's a sharp skinhead. I'd be like, well, let's just not have skinheads involved in air traffic. This is not a safe bet. We have to align ourselves with a pattern here. And the pattern with Drag Queen Story Hour is it's a disproportionate number of pedophiles are involved. And even if that wasn't true, it's a sexual thing. Drag queens represent a hyperbolic, almost a parody of women and heterosexuals and sex. They're sort of like Missy Vaughn from Pee-wee's Playhouse. They're almost like a minstrel show mocking females, the way a Sambo would be a parody of an African American. So it's just, it doesn't belong. It belongs at a nightclub. By all means, I'll go. I'll have a great time. Karaoke it up over at Lips. But it doesn't belong in front of little kids.
So it's bad for kids to see parodies.
It's bad for kids to see sexual parodies. Clowns are parodies. That's fine.
And do you think, and from your perspective, you believe that seeing someone, for instance, a man dressed as a woman in an outrageous makeup, that kids absorb that as being sexual?
Well, they strip. They do lap dances. They accept money in
At
their
Drag
underwear.
Queen Story Hour?
They have fake asses. They have thigh-high
At
boots.
Drag Queen Story Hour?
Yes. At Drag Queen events. But I have seen a Drag Queen.
that would be fascinating. Can you point to an instance in which there was a lap dance at a Drag Queen Story Hour with parents and librarians present?
Well, this culture has leaked from Drag Queen Story Hour to Drag Queen all ages events all over the country now.
So there are lap dances at drag queen story
I don't know.
hours
I
at
don't. I
libraries.
wouldn't say there might be there. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a lap dance at a drag queen story hour. But it's a sexual thing, and it has led to a whole bunch of other drag queen events with kids that are sexual, that have them twerking and sitting on. Right up until in high school, they're doing this at events in high schools, grinding on students. I could show you a whole montage if you
So
want.
how do you? It's really fascinating how we went from the conversation about trans people to drag queens. You know, in the LGBTQ community, there is a sense that those are distinct communities, even though there's some overlap, but not the same community. And it's really fascinating to me that you've conflated a performance genre, drag queens and drag kings. That's a performance with trans people. Like, where is that? How does that happen? Like, what for you? How did you do that? I guess is my question.
Well, you might separate them, but they don't separate. Talk to most of these drag queens,
Who's
and they will
they?
be identified as non-binary.
Okay, so you think that most drag queens identify as non-binary and therefore identify as trans? That's
Yes.
what you're saying?
Yes. That's exactly what I'm
Okay.
saying. The good old days was it was just a gay on a Friday. He decided to put on a funny outfit. And now there's this sort of amorphous. I mean, look at the flag.
So why
It
aren't we
looks
just
like
targeting
digital- it
non-binary?
looks
So
like-
why aren't we just So why aren't we just, and from your perspective, why wouldn't you just target and say non-binary people should be the focus, and instead you say all trans people?
No, I don't say that.
If non-binary people are drag queens and kings writ large, according to your analysis, then why? You know what I mean?
Yeah, look. There's a denial that there's any kind of grooming or pedophile angle in trans and drag queens. But when I do presentations on this, I separate them all. I say drag queen story hour
Okay.
pedos, drag queen pedos, trans pedos, and then even just trans pervs. But like if I'm happy to isolate all of those and discuss the problems with all of them.
So because so therefore my question is, if you believe that there's an entire group of people in the country that are harming kids, then why shouldn't those people be harmed on site? Like, why shouldn't someone look at someone who is trans and say, oh, there's a person and that we should take care of them? Like, why wouldn't you, like, from your perspective?
Yeah, I agree that it's a mental illness. I've always said trans.
No, that's not my question. My question is that, like, if there is this harm to the degree that you say, then wouldn't violence be a natural response? And in that standpoint, isn't violence legitimated?
No, because violence plays into their hands, and then now you're the violent freak, and now you've lost your voice, and I think this is what a lot of your side wants, is for us to be violent so they can throw us in jail like they did with Jan 6, like they did to Max and John with the Antifa fight. I'm not taking that bait. But if you want to
I
isolate
don't
all
think
these...
it's bait. I think it's a legitimate question. I think that if from your standpoint, if you believe that, as you say, that authorities are not doing their job to protect kids, and that there's an entire group of people that you believe are harmful to kids, and there is an organization that has no problems with, showing itself and making its voice heard in all types of ways, then then it's a natural consequence that you would say, well, sometimes you might need to rough some people up.
Are you trying to get me to advocate vigilantism? You think I'm going to take that bait?
I'm not trying to
Was
get
I
you
born
to
an hour
answer
ago?
anything. I'm saying
Nice try.
I'm saying that you are, for some reason, like, that you've laid out a logic tree, and then when you get to the logical conclusion of what you've laid out, you say, well, that's not the natural conclusion. But I'm just literally following the logic that you've laid out here.
I guess it could get to that if things get worse and worse and worse. But luckily we have plenty of avenues before we get to the kind of
What are
escape
some of
from
those
New
other
York
avenues?
anarchy you're talking about.
What are some of those other avenues?
Criminal prosecution, litigation. I think hospitals that have lesbians cut their tits off should be prosecuted for that. You have maimed children. You know how many lesbian bars there are in America right now?
I haven't done research on it, so I can't tell you.
There's
It sounds
only-
like you know better than I do.
There's
What's
only
the number?
14. There's 14 left in the entire 331 million person country. There isn't even one in New York. Remember Meow Mix? It's gone. Because we've maimed these lesbians. So
you want to stand
maiming
up for the
children
lesbian
should-
community, even though you want to stand up for the lesbian community as well?
I want to what?
You're standing up for the lesbian community.
Yeah.
And you think that Western chauvinism and is pro-lesbian?
Sure. It never came up before. Like they go, oh, you're pretending to care about lesbians. No, I never cared about lesbians till you cut their tits off. Now I go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Now I'm with, the Gays Against Groomer. Jamie Singler, the gay who strayed.
Yeah, I've never heard of lesbians being forcibly held down and forced to do surgeries, unless we're talking about the 1950s when that was legal.
We're there. It's not as simple as holding them down.
I don't know.
It's this cultural push on young people that tells them, no, you're not gay, you're a man. And men don't have tits, so cut those off. You're not a girl, you're a boy. So take
the
these
decline of
permanently
lesbian,
You keep interrupting me, and I'm not allowed to interrupt you.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying, honestly, so I'll pause, and first of all, I will apologize, and I will let you finish, because you're absolutely right. I guess one of the things is that there's so many things that are being said, and they're all bunched together that I'm trying to parse them. But you are totally right, and I'm going to be quiet.
All right. Hospitals that perform top surgery should be criminally prosecuted. Anyone who gives kids or encourages children to take hormone therapy that makes them permanently infertile, we used to use that as a punishment for pedophiles. We called it chemical castration. So anyone who's chemically castrating children, no matter what they say. When I was a kid, I wanted to get facial tattoos. I had to wait till I was 18 to get tattoos. So no matter what they say, we say, okay, we're just going to hold out in case you're a tomboy. I have a feeling you're not a woman. I have a feeling you're going to be a gay. And when you turn 18, we're going to put some red short shorts on you, and you can dance around the West Village till your heart's content. But as far as disfiguring, or not disfiguring, but permanently maiming children, that should be a crime. It was a crime up until very recently. And also, this culture of encouraging young children to join a group that has a 40% suicide rate. I don't want any of those things. Am I going to go vigilante town Charles Bronson killing people? No. Of course not. No one is going to do that. We are going to criminally prosecute. And the beauty of this Drag Queen Story Hours is you don't have to do any violence. You just show up and go, this isn't happening. And it doesn't happen. It's that simple.
So I'm just confused on this point, like this declaration of being pro-lesbian as a part of, your worldview right now, when in part it seems like in the past that you think that there shouldn't be lesbians, because you said that you think that women would be happier in the home and that they would be much happier outside of, in the domestic sphere. And so right now you're saying a part of my concern is the fact that there are only 14 lesbian bars left in America, and that we are destroying lesbians, in what you just laid out. But in the past, you've said that women should be in traditional, heterosexual patriarchal relationships, and that they'd be much happier.
Yeah, unless they're gay. Look, I never cared about African albinos until they started chopping their arms off because they thought their blood was magic. Now I'm worried about African albinos. I believe you're born gay. I believe 1% of the population is gay. 1%.
That's actually 1% of the population is trans, but I think it's higher for gay people. But go ahead. Okay, this is a fact.
We can play to like 1 to 3 are gay.
Okay.
And unlike a lot of Christians, I don't think that's fixable. I think you just gotta accept it. It's like, and I don't have any animosity towards it. I don't want to fix it in the sense of, like, say you had a vegetarian lion. I would go, oh, that's sad. He's got these big, huge fangs for ripping into flesh, but he just wants to eat tofu. No one wants to hurt a vegetarian lion, but they are weird. They are unusual. You don't want your kids to be vegetarian lions. When they turn out to be, you go, oh, well, you don't want to beat them like gypsies do or Muslims do. You just go, oh, well, that sucks. My kid's an albino. He's a vegetarian lion. He's left-handed. Like it's a veer from the norm. I'm not sitting here telling lesbians to marry men. I'm saying generally the ideal for the other 95% is the traditional nuclear family. And why is that?
And your idea is that heterosexuality is under threat now? You think that heterosexuality is increasingly vanishing?
Yeah. Look at how young kids are embarrassed to admit that they're straight now. Every kid says he's trans or non-binary. It's the cool thing to do. The argument for Drag Queen Story Hour is we don't want these kids to be bullied. Bullied? It's cool to be gay. It's uncool to be straight. In fact, I think a lot of, especially women, identify as trans because it's so boring to be a normal white person that they want to spice it up a little bit. So they go, well, I know I look like a guy who's into chicks, but I'm actually a lesbian. And you go, you're just a guy with long hair, but okay, whatever makes you feel less boring and normy.
When you said that there are increasingly criminal prosecutions, like there should be criminal prosecutions, and that leads me to think about the way in which there's a whole host of ways in which being trans is being criminalized in terms of bathrooms, in terms of access to educational safe spaces. I know that's a trick word for you, but educational safe spaces, and access to healthcare, parental rights. There are a whole host of ways in which, and it would seem to me that that's okay with you. That's
parental rights?
What are you thinking about those?
Parental rights?
Yeah.
Are you talking about all the men who can't see their daughter anymore because they deny her identity and refuse to call her Joey? I mean, we are having people lose their children because they refuse to believe these delusions about an 8-year-old who thinks he's a girl. And now I can't see my kid anymore? That's the parental rights. And as far as the bathroom crap, come on. Is that really such a nightmare? I think the pros and cons of having perverts come in and want to change, like Leah Thomas, who just lost her lawsuit, what was the other swimmer there, Paula something, saying, are you going to apologize for the 18 times I had to undress next to you while you had an erection? See, here's one of the biggest problems with trans, and you see this with Antifa too, is you can be a perfectly innocent trans person who doesn't want to hurt anyone, but you attract perverts who want to go to a woman's prison so they can rape people. Or, some pedophile on my list here, he raped his daughter, and then he changed his identity to a woman. He's no longer on the sex offenders list. He's got a whole new identity, free to roam around. He got to reboot the hard drive. So you tend to attract malicious people with bad intentions. Just like Antifa, they could be bona fide anarchists that just want to protest, the government and they want a freer society, sure. But when you're masked up and fighting people, you're going to attract assholes that want to just randomly hurt people.
So, Gavin, do you think that the average Proud Boy makes the distinctions that you say that you're making? Do you think that they make the distinction? Because you're saying that, there are these people that are harming kids. The law isn't taking care of that. We have to stand up and protect them and protect society and protect the idea of the centrality of men, because that leads to the best outcomes in society. And so that means that we have to, go and protest and essentially engage in confrontations, right? However you define that. Do you think that the individual Proud Boys can make the distinction between all of what you said, but, we can never, things can never be, things can never get out of hand. We should always be peaceful. Do you think that every single Proud Boy, most of the Proud Boys, that they can hold those two things, which appear to be in contradiction, but you hold them, or you say that you do, and you think that most Proud Boys do?
They do. I know them, and they have. This is what I don't get about the left. The radical left destroys the country for 2 years, and the focus is on what if Proud Boys get mad? Well, they had one riot at J6. Yes, they did. They made a mistake. They should have had to pay a $100 fine for that riot. Or why don't they just get the same punishment that BLM and Antifa got for the 2 years of rioting that cost $3 billion and 12 lives? Let's focus on what if with the Proud Boys. When we've seen all these what ifs play out, they've been around before Trump was around. And there's no going to gay clubs. There's no terrorizing LGBTQ centers. That's not true. They always say that 18 and up, we don't show up. 18 plus, you get rid of us. Just don't do drag queen events for kids. So, and then don't go to changing room where your cock is out and you're around naked young girls. I don't think that's a lot to ask for.
So if you're 18, once you get to 18, you're totally fine with everything.
Yeah. I mean, it would be sad to see some lesbian cut their dick off or make that bizarre burrito they make when they get a sex change. It looks nothing like a penis. It's sad to see.
You've seen pictures?
What?
You've seen pictures? You've looked at it?
Oh, yeah.
Why? That's interesting.
It was at my urologist's office.
So urologist had just random books open, and you were looking through.
No, I was kind
of
high because I was getting an injection, so I was very jovial and friendly, and I was
making
making
urology office.
The secretaries were laughing their heads off because I was, when you're just on and you're nailing it. So I would think I was on a Percocets or something, and I was being hilarious, and they were giggling, and then we started talking about the burrito, the cheese blints they make. And they showed me some pictures. I'd never seen it before. And I was like, just get a strap on. I mean, that thing isn't even close.
Okay, so you've just looked at random pictures in the urology office while you were on Percocet of phalloplasties.
Yeah, well, I've done it many times. I mean, I don't at bars. Sometimes it's a fun thing to show people to make them dry heave. And then as far as the removing the penis with those balls of hair that get caught up there, that seems sad to me for an adult to do that, but it's none of my business. So go nuts, maim yourself. I see it as the same as these people who identify as handicapped and they cut their limbs off. I'm not going to get in the way of that.
I mean, I know that you stepped away from the Proud Boys, but you still clearly know a lot about the organization and how it functions. And I'm wondering, why did you step away?
I'm writing a book about the Proud Boys, so I'm interviewing people on a regular basis. It's one of these subjects that just keeps... It's like World War II. You think you can just summarize it in a few pages, but there's more and more and more the more you dig, the infighting and the rules changing and all this stuff. But the reason I stepped away from the Proud Boys is the fight I told you about where they threw a bottle of urine at these Proud Boys and then started kicking them and they fought back. Those guys were in court, and the prosecution was going to make it all about a gang where they listen to what I say. And first of all, that's not true. But secondly, my show has thousands and thousands of hours. Don't show that. Has thousands and thousands of hours of content. So me being the boss enables the prosecution to, fine tune and get these little quotes that sound like calling for violence or something and form a case of that. Also, a gang has this top-down management. It's really the semantics of law. A gang does things that are illegal and has top-down management. If I take myself out of the equation, there's only the do things illegal, and Proud Boys don't do things that are illegal. So it gets them out of the gang zone as far as their prosecution goes. But they still got 4 years, 1 year less than the max, for a mutual combat fight that Antifa said, don't press charges.
So were you afraid of being prosecuted, or it's really the fact that you were trying to protect the organization by removing yourself?
I wasn't scared of being prosecuted in that case, but so that's not why. That wasn't a motive for me to say that I was stepping down. But I am scared of being prosecuted. I think our justice system is a joke. We keep seeing cops go to jail for things that were just based on the public's reaction. We see Trump's ridiculous 34 counts. No one knows what they are. They just know he's a criminal. He's going to jail. The justice system has just become revenge of the nerds for these guys who were bullied in high school. So I could disappear tomorrow. Absolutely.
Do you think that...
Find me a man and I'll find you the law he broke?
I mean, as you say, like the problem is sort of, you have to be patriarchal and you have to stand 10 toes down on things. It would seem like that you would be willing to do that regardless of the consequences, that you wouldn't step down from something that you believed in order to not be prosecuted.
You really want to get me in jail, don't you? You want me to be a vigilante and start fucking up people who at drag queen store. Now you want me to go to jail for my beliefs? I'm a father of three beautiful American Indian children. I want to do everything in my power to be a father for them until they're adults. I don't want to go to jail. I guess if I was braver, I would abscond my throne as the patriarch, as the father, and let my children grow up with no dad in the name of the cause. But it hasn't really come to that.
But you are also a patriarch of the Proud Boys. I mean, in every single way. And so, there's a stepping away of that.
That's not true. We encouraged sort of like states' rights. Like, there's the tenets of the organization, like a constitution, and then each chapter, as long as they stay within that, sort of like a McDonald's franchise, that they maintain the brand, they maintain the club on their own. I'm not like the Knights of Columbus, I guess, has the Catholic Church and the Pope, so that's a bad analogy. But
right, so I wasn't talking about direct command and control. I think that it's been, as you say, very clear that there are local chapters and all the rest of it. But I think in terms of setting up the ideological frame for the organization, giving it inspiration and a name, and constantly being a reference point as to how people should comport themselves, I think it would be really hard for you to say that's not you.
Well, the original idea was mine, yes, and they stick to that. But many of them have strayed from it and been ostracized.
How so?
Many of them hate my guts. And
why would they hate you?
They see me as a traitor for quitting. Some groups don't like some of the rules, like there's no rules against drugs, and a lot of chapters are heavy drug users, cocaine and stuff, and a lot of Proud Boys that are more traditional are very mad about that. Sometimes they become racist and get booted out, and then they get mad at that. So yeah, it's not like, I think American, what's it called, Patriot Front. There's other groups that are very lockstep, but this is based on Animal House. So the way the media makes this into this ominous, spooky group, they just want to drink beer and make fart jokes. Now, if you're going to groom kids, they're going to show up and say, don't do that. But outside of big, egregious moves like that, it's just a party club. It's a drinking club with a patriot problem.
It's a drinking club with a patriot problem, with individuals who stormed the Capitol, and no one there felt that it was just a drinking party or frat boys gone wild.
There's no one not true. I mean, Nick Oakes.
That's not true.
Nick Oakes, who has a company called Murder the Media, he was there to make fun of boomers. He was laughing his head off in there. They were doing selfies. You saw a guy walking out with a podium. You don't think there was comedy in that? There was a lot of comedy in that, what we call the meandering. I think it's important that the left and the right at least both concede that J6 is subjective. And we see it, I understand you guys see it as an insurrection and this big serious thing. We see it as a joke, a riot gone awry, a temper tantrum, and not a big deal. There was only 2 people that were killed that day, and they were both patriots.
So first of all, this isn't about my own personal views, to be perfectly honest. The reason why I think it's called an insurrection is because there's a former president of the United States.
You don't say his name?
People don't know who I'm talking about.
What is it, like Is it like Beetlejuice? You can't say his name?
Former president of the United States, Donald Trump. I mean, it's a fact, right? I don't have a problem actually stating facts, right? So that the Justice Department has deemed it to be an insurrection. There are many states attorney generals across the United States who deemed it as an insurrection. The fact that the military was motivated late in the day, but deployed and mobilized late in the day because
why so late in the day?
Also saw it as an insurrection. So I don't understand how, like,
weird. It was so late in the day.
You say that. Hold on. I don't understand why you say that, like, all of those things lead to different points of view, that those aren't facts, right? Like, those are. Okay,
so we're supporting. So the justice system we're supporting now, and if someone is found guilty, then they're guilty. Is that what we're doing?
What I said is that the Justice Department, and not only the Justice Department, but many of the state's attorney generals, in the opinion of the military that day, in the opinion of the United States Congress at the time, those are all entities that have declared it to be an insurrection.
Yeah, corrupt entities that are wrong. Our justice system has been totally corrupted now. 10 years ago, I would go, holy crap, I guess you're right. It was deemed that by the courts. Therefore, it's true. But with Soros backing all of these corrupt DAs and me seeing my friends get thrown in jail for total... Do you honestly think you should get 30 years for breaking a window and storming the Capitol? Do you honestly think they were trying to take over the government with no guns?
I mean, that's what juries of their peers have found to be the case.
Juries of their peers are retarded.
In multiple jurisdictions across the United States. No, that's correct.
Juries of their peers are wrong. This is where we are with the justice system. You know, when John and Max went to jail, the judge said, I'm giving them this harsh sentence for a 17-second fight because political fighting on the streets reminds me of 1930s Europe. In other words, I'm Hitler and he's preventing World War III. That's the kind of rhetoric going on in the courts right now. We've lost our justice system. It's the court of public opinion now. So just because a Soros-backed DA says something doesn't mean it has any credibility whatsoever. Look at your 2 years of riots with 0 prosecutions. What was that? Was that mostly peaceful?
I mean, I don't particularly appreciate having my picture next to a burning building
Ryan,
and the words looting, because I didn't have anything to do with that. You're not talking about a person who's a member of BLM or, a sundry group, so I don't know why you would do that, but okay.
I apologize.
No worries. I mean, everybody's, it's you're doing what you do on your end, but I'm not here in that capacity, and I didn't have anything to do with.
Well, I'm just using it as a way to illustrate our dead justice system. Those
okay.
riots causing no prosecutions is an example of our dead justice system. So just because they found Trump guilty, or they found James O'Keefe guilty, or they found Alex Jones guilty,
No one
that
was
does not mean
prosecuted
they're
for
guilty.
looting? No one was prosecuted for looting during the
No.
2020 and 2021? Oh,
No.
no one. Okay. I mean, excuse me. You say that like January 6th was just frat boys gone wild, but how do you explain the events in Washington in November and December, where there were also Proud Boys that were, rampaging through the streets and clashing with both police and counter demonstrators? Like,
This is not. They were not clashing with police.
they didn't clash?
They were clashing with Antifa, who were attacking random people on the streets. In fact, I'm glad you brought that up, because I begged them not to go to January 6th. I said it's a trap, and I said November and December were so good for you guys. You went in there. Antifa were attacking people, attacking some random black woman and her child because she had a MAGA shirt on, and Proud Boys showed up and defended her. They defended all these families that were getting jumped. It was beautiful. And then all of a sudden they decide to just hit me to the blackjack dealer, and they end up falling in the trap. But November and December, I don't know what you've heard, but I have all the details on those, and those were great. That was them not provoking any kind of violence, but defending random families and patriots from radical leftist lunatics. They got stabbed. Like, Proud Boys were stabbed, hospitalized. One of that black woman who was with them, she almost died. They punctured her lung.
How many Antifa chapters are there across the United States?
That's a good question. I'm going to say, I'm going to say there's one in every major city. I don't know. There's probably 100.
It sounds like you're not certain.
I am not certain how many Antifa chapters there are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not certain how many Proud Boys chapters there are.
Where have you heard of there being Antifa chapters?
Are we in denial that Antifa is organized now?
I am asking for evidence of an organization that, most authorities say doesn't exist.
Well, that's just propaganda. They have, Andy No wrote a whole book on this. You could look it up. They have.
Who did? Sorry?
Andy No. NGO, Vietnamese guy, who researches Antifa very intensely. It's Antifa as a whole. We could do a whole show on Antifa, because the Pacific Northwest is very different than Berkeley, is very different from New York City, it's very different from other places. New York City, it's all educated rich kids who organize online mostly, and they had a cafe in Williamsburg where they would meet regularly. I forget what it was called, the Ape Cafe or something. I think it got shut down recently, but it was very openly an Antifa cafe where they would have their meetings. In Berkeley, it's much more sinister. Down there, it's more these Soros-backed charity houses that take in drug addicts, and then they slowly groom them and say, well, like a cult, you owe me now, and we gave you a place to live. Next rally, we want to see you get out there and fight for the cause. The Pacific Northwest, it's more meth heads who aren't funded by Soros, and that whole city's gone so violently left that these radical, lunatic mental patients on drugs are attacking not just Proud Boys, you understand. They'll attack old ladies at a rally who are anti-vax.
You've brought up a couple of times Antifa in the context of trans people and in the context now of Soros, and I do know that there is a belief that is floating around on the internet, which is that there are people in this country who are of Jewish heritage who are undermining the United States by both
Soros isn't Jewish.
Okay.
His father was an atheist. He was an atheist. His son is an atheist. Just because your great-grandmother was Jewish doesn't mean you're Jewish. He hates Jews. He was a Nazi. He worked with the Nazis to round up Jews. To call him a Holocaust survivor is a bit of a stretch. I guess Mengele would be a Holocaust survivor in that sense. So, no, sorry,
George
you can't
Soros
be an atheist.
is same as Mengele?
What?
George Soros in your eyes is the same as Joseph Mengele?
Well, they're both Holocaust survivors in that sense. They both worked with the Nazis. Yes, I think that Mengele.
So-
and the only difference is Soros said it was the greatest time of his life. I don't know if Mengele enjoyed working with the Nazis as much as Soros did.
So let me return to my question, which is
Okay.
not to debate the heritage of, someone who says that they are a
He does when
Jewish
it's politically
heritage.
convenient, sure.
So the question is that there is a theory, and let me just state clearly before we go on that George Soros did not work for the National Socialist
Yes,
in
he
Germany.
did. He admits it in his book freely.
I
Go
am
look him
going
up
to
on 60 Minutes.
I am just going to state that. I know that you will say whatever you're going to say.
Are you scared of
But
lawfare? Does the Open Society fund you?
I am just saying clearly
Oh,
and
did you just get
unequivocally.
caught? Did you just get caught being funded by Soros?
I am stating clearly and unequivocally as a fact that someone who you accused of working with the National Socialist Party in Germany did not do so.
Yes, he did. He admits it. Look it up. He says it was the greatest time of his life. He would deliver the notices to various Jewish homes saying, "You're next." Then, on top of that, he would
Okay.
go to the confiscated homes and help them collect the art and the bric-a-brac and the loot. And he loved it.
Okay. This is something that is refutable, so that's fine. But the question, I want to go to my core question, which is before this sort of tangent of disinformation.
I don't want to
about this
affect your
person.
funding. If you want to deny that and it helps pay the bills, by all means, deny it.
I want to deny that you said something that was factually incorrect. That's what I
no,
wanted.
it-
I'm sorry.
It's financially
Yes,
incorrect for you if you're
denied-
funded by the Open Society. If you're funded by them, then yeah, it's financially incorrect.
I could be funded by God Almighty Himself, and that wouldn't make George Soros
Alex
a Nazi.
Soros is huge on the trans thing. Alex Soros is funding you.
I am going on to my core question. My core question is
Whoa,
that there
this
is
is
this
huge.
conspiracy. That there's this conspiracy on the internet that Jews are, let me just be more precise. There are people of Jewish heritage in the United States that are funding both the trans movement and gender identity movement, along with Antifa as a way to undermine the United States. Now, those are things that, and I'm wondering what your thought is about that.
Yeah, I'm a Zionist. I'm pro-Jew, but my Jews tend to be Orthodox and even Hasidic, very normal traditional Jews. I think that the group that the radical right, which I'm not a part of, is really mad at are mostly secular, and plenty of atheist globalist Jews like Soros, who I don't consider Jewish. I call him Gino. Jew in name only. But here's the difference. You're talking about the Jews will not replace us thing, I guess, to a certain extent.
I don't know about that. It sounds like you have more insight into that than I do. I'm specifically asking about this common theory that is swirling amongst, a bunch of people, both online and in person, that one of the reasons why there's been an increase, for example, in trans people is because it's a part of a Jewish conspiracy to undermine the United States by shifting people away from patriarchal norms, which would undermine the positionality of the United States and of white people within that. That is something that people say. And they also say that those same people are also behind Antifa and therefore are a threat to the United States. And I am asking you what you think of that.
Okay, so there is without a doubt globalists and elites who are funding Antifa, and they do want to destroy this country. The Jewish moniker is lazy thinking. Maybe there's disproportionately secular Jews within that group of globalists who haven't been to a synagogue their entire lives, so I don't see them as Jews. But I think it's an elitist problem. It's a white elite problem. Whether there's more Jews than non-Jews in there in relation to the population is it's weak. If it rains on your birthday, you blame the Jews. To have a scapegoat is weak. I see it as more of an elitist problem. Now, the whole Jews will not replace this thing is there isn't a replacement going on. You just look it up. It's demographic. We are being outnumbered by immigrants all over the Western world. That's happening. I think it's happening because the DNC and the left see it as getting them more votes. The radical right sees it as this big Jew plan. I think that's dumb and conspiratorial. I think that you're giving them too much credit. I think the DNC is just lazy, and they don't care if the world burns as long as they stay in power. So if importing immigrants and replacing citizens works for them, then they'll do it. There's no grand plan in that sense, is my personal theory. As far as the trans thing goes, it's funny you bring that up because I only heard about that last week. I heard Alex Soros is trans. He's actually a chick. And the reason that he talks so weird is because his brain is addled with hormones. That's why he goes, all the time. But that's new to me. I'm not open to it being, a Jewish conspiracy, but I'm open to it being part of this globalist destroy the world thing.
But you did say that there's the possibility that the globalists, as you say, are disproportionately secular Jews.
That's a possibility, sure. I don't care.
Mm-hmm. But
I don't like atheists. George Soros is an atheist. I hate atheists. They're bad for the country.
But the fascinating thing about it is that the idea of Jews as globalist is an anti-Semitic trope that is 100 years in the making.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you can't be anti-globalist. Here's something that lefties don't seem to understand. All dogs are mammals. All cats are mammals. All dogs are not cats. Hitler uses toilet paper, or used. I use toilet paper. I'm not Hitler. So just because a bunch of lunatics think Jews are planning to destroy the world via globalism doesn't mean that you can't hate globalism.
But it's different in a world in which the trope of Jewish globalists undermining society has been used to commit some of the worst atrocities the world has ever seen. And the fact is
like
that
what?
you're not in an outright way rejecting that.
Yes, I am.
Oh, you are.
I
Okay.
just said it's a dumb route to go down. But what
You said it was dumb, but you didn't
atrocities?
say that it
Are you
was
talking about World
wrong.
War II?
Wait a minute. You said that it was. I'll come to that. You said that it was. You said it was dumb. You didn't say that it was wrong.
Okay, there could be a disproportionate number of dentists that are globalists. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't care. There could be a disproportionate number of albinos that are globalists. I don't see it as an albino plan. I don't care about that. I care about the problem at hand. And to be totally honest, if you want to get into genetics, I think that there is something about white people where they have a kill switch in them. And when they reach a certain level of success, they self-immolate, they self-destruct, they become lemmings and want to push themselves off the cliff. And to blame that on Jews is weak. And it also absolves these white people of their ethnomasochism. I don't want them to be like that. I want them to like being white. It's okay to be white. And that's considered hate speech, by the way.
So you would say quite clearly to Proud Boys, for example, or anyone listening, you would say, if you believe that Jews are behind the expansion of trans people in society by funding what they would say is gender ideology, or also Antifa, and that those things are being used to undermine Western chauvinism, you would say to that Proud Boy, you're dead wrong.
Yes, but I also am getting some weird vibes from you right now. I think Alex Soros is funding you. Because you sound like you're setting me up to...
I don't know Alex Soros. I have never met Alex Soros.
Promise?
I promise.
Have you never bumped into him?
Have I ever what?
Have you ever bumped into him?
Never.
Okay.
I mean, perhaps you travel in circles like that.
It just sounds like
I
you're
don't.
setting me up to say something so you can check it off on a list.
The fascinating thing is that I've encouraged you, and I want you to speak for yourself. I
am not anti-Semitic.
You're not anti-Semitic, but you're saying you would just say to that Proud Boy again, you're dead wrong. That's not what's happening.
Correct. I do all the time.
Okay.
I constantly say it. In fact, I think that's why some of the more radical Proud Boys don't like me, because they think I'm cucking for shekels.
That's a lot of interesting terms together. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
what you say to someone that you want when you want them to be anti-Semitic and they won't take the bait. They say, "Oh, you're like," they assume you're getting checks from Mossad or something to defend Israel. I don't know. I went there. I had a great time. And what people don't get about Israel too is, not to go off on a tangent, but there's incredible nuance there. Like there's radical right Israelis who don't want any Muslims in their country. Then there's the radical lefty Israelis who want the wall taken down, and they're happy that there's Muslims in parliament, and they're happy that there's Muslims living in Israel. It's all over the place. In fact, when you read the newspapers in Israel, the English ones, they're more anti-Semitic than any radical right thing I've seen here. They're much more self-critical than you're allowed even to say here in America.
Just a couple more questions that I have. One is, it would seem to me that, like, you stepped away from the organization. You would say that there are views that Proud Boys hold that you would totally disavow, and that in part people in the organization are upset with you because you've disavowed them, right? That's what you say.
Well, if that happened, yeah, okay, sure. I mean, there's we could be talking about a million things right now. If there was a guy who was a Nazi in the Proud Boys, white power, Sieg Heil, I don't understand why there's blacks at this meeting. He's gone. If anyone went to Charlottesville, they were gone.
But if you were at January 6th, you're not gone.
No, January 6th did nothing wrong. It was a mistake. It was as bad as it was take all the riots of the past 2 years with BLM and Antifa, and it was one of those, but funnier.
The people who died that day, was that funny?
No, yeah, and I accept your apology if you're talking about the radical leftist, the affirmative action cop who shot Ashley Babbitt, and the affirmative action cop who started that steamroll that eventually suffocated that poor woman. Those leftists that murdered patriots that day, yes, that was terrible what they did.
So the
apology
people
accepted.
that died that day and the people that were hospitalized that day, including people who were involved in storming the Capitol, all that is a joke.
No, but there was an element of humor to a lot of this protest. I don't see it as the 9/11 that everyone wants to make it out to be.
How is it humorous if there were people who were injured, regardless of what they did that day, and if people died? How is that humorous?
That's not humorous, but over the course of a 6-hour event, there can be some funny things and some very serious things. Do you know the guy who put his feet up on the desk just got 5 years?
And that's funny?
No, that's ridiculous. I'm not using that as an example of humor. I'm using that as an example of, you seem to think that we got the upper hand that day, and by we, I mean, I guess that I mean the right. But you guys have been dwelling in that stupid event for years and years while people rot in prison, and with zero focus on the radical left and their crimes. It just doesn't seem proportional to me. It seems like justice is not blind.
It would seem to me, though, I mean, one of the things that I have a question about is it seems to me that, like, there are still, though, a great many Proud Boys who listen to your podcast, who pay attention to what you're doing and to what you're saying, and that still constitutes an important influence on the organization.
Could you give a specific example?
I'm asking you from your perspective.
No, you said it seems. It seems as though I actually don't think you've watched an episode of my show, have you?
The reason why is several reasons that I can just observe from this conversation. One, you still have a very deep knowledge of the organization and how it functions, which doesn't totally speak to someone who doesn't have any connection or know what's going on.
I told you I'm writing a book about the club.
You articulate the views of the Proud Boys in very coherent and very knowledgeable ways.
I wrote their constitution.
You, as well, continue to be able to explain the perspectives and the ideologies of various people in the Proud Boys, despite the fact that many of their leadership is gone. And so all of those things together says to me that there is some way, even if it is just through the power of your presence, that there is still an important symbolism and attention paid by people who are Proud Boys to you.
Yeah, I get this from reporters a lot, but I don't understand why they care so much. I think they want me to be a Svengali so that I can then be prosecuted and thrown in jail by this corrupt justice system. I know Proud Boys very well. I still think it's the greatest fraternity in the world. And the way that they have been treated is a great example of the death of the West, the way Alex Jones has been treated, the way J6 has been treated, the way the former president has been treated. It shows you that we have lost our way with this double standard. I mean, it's really sad that we've lost our innate sense of justice. And when Trump says make America great again, he doesn't want to go back to 1800. He wants to go back to like 1987. When we were over all this crap and we'd sort of solved most of these problems. I feel like post-Obama's America, we've drummed up all these new issues that weren't problems before. Cross-dressers were cross-dressers. We didn't get into arguments about bathrooms back then. Race wasn't a thing. You could make jokes about guys on the work site and they'd rib you, you'd rib them. We were kind of over it. And now it's like we've gone back, we've catapulted, at least mentally, back to the 50s. It's a sad state of affair, especially because we don't have the justice and sense of truth and honor of the 50s. So it's almost like modern America has acted like a piece of gum rolling over the carpet, picking up the worst parts of lint throughout our history. And here we are with this lint-infested piece of gum that might not be cleanable. I don't know if you can clean gum with that much lint on it.
Are you proud of the Proud Boys?
Yeah. I think, you know what no one talks about with the Proud Boys is the amount of guys that have put a ring on it, got married, and had kids. That's not sexy as a news story. A 17-second fight is much sexier. Lies about Nazis is much sexier. But the boring truth of it is these guys, a lot of them didn't have fathers. A lot of them didn't have direction. A lot of them had troubles with booze or drugs. They got their shit together from the Brotherhood, and they started quitting booze, quitting drugs, getting serious, whatever their vices were. Getting in shape is a big thing. And the next thing you know, they're putting a ring on their girlfriend's finger and making babies. And those babies have babies, and those babies have babies. So the impact of the Proud Boys goes way beyond some dumb riot where a bunch of guys got framed. It goes to thousands, if not millions, of future happy Americans. And the thing about all of these radical leftist nuts is they're not having kids. Perhaps that's why they want to groom so bad, is because they want to reproduce, because the radical left is one generation away from extinction.
So the Proud Boys are a way to make great Americans, is what you just said.
Yep, great Westerners of all shapes and colors.
So would trans men be welcome in the Proud Boys?
That's come up quite a bit, actually. And I had some trouble with that because there was, we've had very, flaming homos that would wear like a dress to a Proud Boys meetup and makeup and stuff. And that's acceptable because he's born male. And then there was this super butch dyke in Texas that I think she even had stubble. And, I was tempted, back then I was running the show, and I was very tempted to bend the rules with her, him, whatever. But I said, no, we got to draw the line somewhere. You got to be born male.
Okay. So, yeah, no, sounds like that would be a no. There will be people listening.
Well, wait a minute. You could be a tranny who was born male.
Okay, trans. What? I think trans. Well, okay, there there'll be people who are listening who will just be disagreeing with you in every single way. Right.
Good.
Will not be agreeing with you and think that you're dead wrong from, A to Z, soup to nuts. And I am wondering with those people, like, what would you say to them? Like, do you care that the country is so polarized that there are these flashpoints around these issues, or you think that that's just a natural consequence of standing up for Western society?
I used to care. I used to want to bridge the gap, and that's very recently. At the beginning of this network, it was called freespeech.tv, but your friend Soros sued me, and I had to change the name. I back then I would have debates with Candace Owens and Cornel West, and They would charge me like 10 grand, by the way, to come and do a debate. So I spent 100 grand trying to get the right and left to work it out. And you know what? The left always lost. They're so uninformed. And I'm at the point now where I think the left has become so lobotomized that I can't talk to them, and I don't want to bridge the gap. They're special needs now. Like, if you think the Tulsa riots were a massacre, I don't have time to talk to you. If you think that there's 9 million illegals in America right now and not 30, I don't have time to talk to you. Most of the people I talk to on the left, they don't even know like what the population of America is, what defines North America, how many dimes are in a dollar. Like we just can't talk to them anymore. So I'm happy about the divorce. I don't want my ex-wife around. I don't want her to be with the kids because she brings them to Drag Queen Story Hour. This is an analogy, by the way. I'm happily married. But you know what I mean? Like, you talk to a guy who's divorced, and I like to joke with divorced people. I like to go, oh, I saw you talking to Debbie over there. Are there some sparks? Because the last thing there is sparks. They hate her guts. And that's how I am with half the country. I come out guns blazing when I meet people. I go, I'm the biggest Trump supporter in the world. Not that I am, but just to sort of get that out of the way. You know, it must be cool to be trans because you just show up and people, if transphobes don't want to talk to you right out of the gate. I wish I could wear something where Trump phobes don't want to talk to me right out of the gate.
So, do you think that in your absence, the fact that Enrique Tarrio sort of became the captain of the ship, as it were, is a problem? What I mean by that is that we know that, he had a lot of direct connections to the Republican Party and to Roger Stone. And that may have been part of the thing that led to the participation in January 6th. And therefore, the identification of the organization with that event. Do you think that was a mistake?
What, having Enrique be the chairman in general?
No, the way in which he and through his leadership of the Proud Boys associated the organization too much with the Republican Party and with its leadership.
I liked that, actually. I liked that they were getting involved in what I liked about that direction was they were getting involved in municipal politics. Like, I think it was in where was this, in North Carolina, where they were at board meetings and they helped prevent men from being in female sports. They helped prevent a Leah Thomas scenario. And that, you're not going to change the president. There's no such thing as an insurrection. I mean, Fidel Castro took over Cuba. That's about the last time I saw it happen, and he was politically connected, and it took him a bunch of tries and a lot of guns. There's no way you're making a federal change. But you can make a local change, and I think that's important. So I enjoyed that. But to be totally honest, I was not a fan of the rallying. In the European chapters, by the way, they're passionately against it. They don't go to any rallies. Their whole thing is make Proud Boys clandestine again, and they're about self-improvement, getting in shape, supporting brothers, and they have very secretive meetings. And I'm talking about Scotland, Wales, Portugal, Germany, Switzerland, all those guys. They never rally. I mean, choose your battles. I think Drag Queen Story Hour is a good thing to go to, but just showing up and screaming, I don't know. It's not my cup of tea.
One other thing, I just now that we're on the subject of Enrique, you said that people who were at Charlottesville weren't allowed in the organization, but Enrique was at Charlottesville and ended up running the organization.
Yeah, good point. He was there, though, as a reporter. He was documenting it all, so we let it go. I mean, he wasn't holding a tiki torch and saying Jews will not replace us or anything. He wasn't really there as a participant. But there were 3 guys who got kicked out for that. And they were getting involved in it. They're posing for pictures. They were part of the march. And I told them it was a trap. And they admitted it to me later that I was right. And I hate how I didn't get any credit. I predicted J6 was a trap, and I predicted Charlottesville was a trap, and I still get looped in as somehow involved.
So we heard oh my gosh, Congressman from Florida. It'll come to me. I can see his face, and I'm not recalling it right now. But at one of Trump's recent, I can't. I know it's a weird thing on camera. You can't do math, and you can't remember the most obvious of names, like Robert Redford will escape you. I don't know what it is. Well, that one I can remember. But but it will come to me. But at a recent Trump, at a rally for Trump, that was, I'm sorry, yes, it did come to me, Matt Gaetz. See? Came to me. That Congressman Matt Gaetz said at a couple of weeks ago at one of the Trump press conferences at the courthouse in New York City, said that that people should stand by, and everybody understands that that's associated with the stand back, stand by remark, and all the rest of it. And so I'm wondering, do you think that there's another trap that's being set for the Proud Boys? Do you think that it would be a mistake for them to respond to a Trump sentencing? Do you think that it would be a mistake for them to respond to, the election if they believe that the election was not conducted in accordance with the laws of the United States? That is to say, that from everything it says, you said, I keep telling them that these things are traps. And so, do you see any of those possible responses as traps that are being set for the Proud Boys?
Yes. Proud Boys are not stupid. There's no way they are going to take to the streets if Trump doesn't win or if the election is stolen. They know that that is just a way to corral MAGA extremists and throw them in prison with insane sentences like 33 years. Mm-hmm. And for the record, Trump clearly meant to say stand down. But just like I was saying with Mass and Robert Redford and Matt Gaetz, when you're on stage there, sometimes the word stand down. So he blurted out stand by. Even the word stand back, he sort of black. So he was slurring his words in a sense because he was trying to remember stand down. We joked later and said, all right, Trump, we're ready with the army. And the media has seized on that. And once again, ignored all leftist violence for 2 years and said, what if Trump has this secret army? I just saw Reuters did a whole article about it where they contend that the tweet that says "will be wild" was a secret whistle that calls the troops out and starts an insurrection. And they say all he has to do is one little "okay, boys, let's do it." And then there's a bat signal and all the Proud Boys. Like, why does the left spend so much time on this hypothetical when we've already been drowning in real life leftist violence for 3-4 years in a row? 12 people dead, $3 billion in damages, lives changed forever. And it's like, well, forget about that. That was a civil rights thing. What if the Proud Boys get mad? They're not going to fall for that trap. They're not going to riot in the streets. They're not going to let the deep swamp throw them in jail en masse the way that Antifa and BLM should have been thrown in jail.
So why didn't literally my last question, because it came up in your answer. So why didn't Trump come out the next day and say, I made a mistake? I said this as an error. No one should take what I said to heart.
He did that day. Oh. He said, be peaceful, calm down, don't break the laws. Everyone has totally ignored that. This is the amazing thing about the former president. They say he says Nazis are good people. No, he didn't say that. He said the first part of Charlottesville was about statues. Those were good people, but I disavow the white supremacists. They're terrible. Don't ever do that. And on the day of January 6th, he put out a tweet that said, be peaceful, behave, don't disobey the law. And they go, no, you didn't say that. You told everyone to riot. It's just lies. And it works. And I think Trump's biggest mistake was disavowing the Proud Boys, because despite being hated in the media, when they walk down the street, they get high fives. Your average American knows the club is just a multiracial, patriotic club, and they appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk today. I was surprised that you were willing to talk. I honestly think that it's good, even when there may not be there's the assumption that it's not going to be the possibility of having a conversation, that we make that assumption, and I think that we've done that today. And so, thank you so much for being willing to talk.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed myself. You're fun to talk to. But I also predict you're going to get a backlash for this, because
why is that?
A lot of people on the left don't like the idea of us arguing and trying to settle our differences or even discussing our differences, because they don't want there to be an audit. They'll say they're going to tell you that you gave a Nazi a platform, because when I say my side, it makes them unable to lie about dumb myths.
Well, I'm a big believer that people get to hear and make up their own minds, that it's not our job to prevent people from hearing information, that people are pretty smart and that they can make up their own minds, that our job is not to stand in the way of them doing that. And, this was a bit of a surprise for me because I did not know that we were being recorded for your show. I thought that you were being recorded on our end, but you're recording this from your show. I would imagine I'm going to see portions of this on that. But even though that was the case, I was like, I'm still going to go ahead with this conversation because I don't shy away from these type of interviews. So
I'd asked in advance. I didn't want to ambush anyone.
I don't think so. I think that we were
ask in advance.
Yeah. No, I don't. You didn't ask in advance.
Yeah, I did. I have it right here. They said,
oh, you do?
They said, it's on a website. You can just download it and have it after.
Who said
I did
that?
not. I have our text exchanges, Gavin.
It doesn't matter.
Well, yeah. So I'm sure that we'll be getting into all of that later. But yes, but I didn't sort of sit down and go, oh, this was a surprise. We're not going to have this conversation. I was like, no, we should still sit down and have this interview. So, yeah. And well, thank you so much. I hope you don't get trapped in garbage day in New York, up in the South Bronx.
I'm taking the train.
Oh, okay. Well, that's smart. I think. Are you going to be in disguise in the train, or you're going to be in your Dolly Parton Targaryen wig?
I think I may change it. Believe it or not, I don't always dress like this.
I figured. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.